Welcome to this webinar on sports and wellbeing ministry in Rochester Diocese. I'm especially thankful to our speakers who joined us tonight from different parts of the country for their involvement, and looking forward to introducing them shortly before I've said a few words myself. Sport and Christianity have had a bit of a socially distanced relationship over the years. Plenty of sportsmen and sportswomen continue to identify as practicing Christians and often make a very public demonstration of this, but the church still seems ambivalent. We've not been great at integrating our bodies into faith and worship. We've inherited a faith deeply influenced by ancient Greek and modern Enlightenment thinking. Now that sounds posher than I mean it to, especially on a Thursday at 7 o'clock. So I'll put it in better terms. We think minds are more important than bodies. And we imagine that we get that from the Bible rather than other traditions, but we're wrong. The single most important moment in history, the Easter story, culminates with the resurrection of the body of Jesus. Not, thank God, the resurrection of Jesus's mind only. Mind and body are not divorced, and when we've allowed them to be, it somehow leads us to look down on the body as earthy and disposable, and the mind as somehow spiritual and eternal. That view also leads us to imagine that mental health isn't a component of physical health, but it is. The church can seem fussy over sport, sometimes rubbishing it as people get too excited over little things when their mind should be focused on deeper matters. The passions of sports fans are remaindered as unimportant when actually they are a sign of being fully human. For sure, they can run out of control when tribalism leads to hate. But sport is a God-given gift that we should take pleasure from. In any case, learning to lose is a big life lesson, as I find out on a regular basis. As the nation falls deeper in love with sport and the fitness of bodies, we can either stand on the sidelines and sneer, or pitch in and get our knees dirty with others. And I think I know which way the incarnation points. And it's not about giving up Sunday worship either, as someone said to me recently, that sports and well-being ministry is some kind of sellout of Sundays. Sunday will continue to be the day of resurrection and the main focal point of Christian worship. But we're not so much behind the curve on understanding what 24/7 faith looks like, then we've been lapped. Worship is the offer of our bodies as a living sacrifice. Every moment we breathe is up for grabs. All these are reasons why Rochester has signed up as a pilot diocese for sports and wellbeing ministry. Natalie will explain more in just a moment, and I want us to grasp this opportunity to serve Jesus in the midst of the chaotic, unpredictable, joyful, and sometimes painful experience of pushing our bodies and supporting our communities. The author, Jerome K. Jerome, once said, "I like work, it fascinates me. I can sit and look at it for hours." So here's my confession. I like sport, it fascinates me. I can sit and look at it for hours. Yes, I may be a candidate for a Channel 5 documentary on Britain's unfittest man, but I really get sport and well-being. It is integrated deeply into how I look at the world and how I look at my faith, and I want to help others share that gift too. And before you nag me, I have a cross trainer. No, not an angry personal coach, but something to work out with that gives me around about 1% of the fitness of Will North and Mark Montgomery, who we meet later tonight. So without digging a deeper hole for myself, I'm going to hand over now. Really pleased to have Natalie Andrews. So grateful that Natalie's been able to come tonight. She joined the National Evangelism and Discipleship team in June as Sport and Wellbeing Project Lead. Prior to that, she was a vicar in Ely in Cambridgeshire. She loves running and sharing her faith in her running club and at Park Run, and has recently started open water swimming. So looks forward to seeing where that might lead also. Natalie, thanks very much for joining us tonight, and over to you. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Bishop Simon. It's really, really good to be here. And I'm really excited that Rochester is one of the pilot dioceses in the National Sport and Wellbeing Project. I'm just going to share my screen. Hopefully this will work. Oops. Excellent. Whoops. So if you want to get in touch with me after today, there's my email address. And we've also got a Twitter account at Sports Wellbeing One. So do have a look on Twitter and follow that. So I couldn't resist at the beginning of the conversation today. Bishop Simon reminded us that sometimes when we hear the word sport, we can sometimes have this image in our minds about who the kind of sports person is or what the kind of sport is. But I had to put in Jamie Vardy because I am a Leicester City supporter. I do love Jamie Vardy. I love Leicester City. But I also realise that after having only begun running again, probably in the last 5 years, that actually it takes great courage to go back to doing some exercise after a long break. And so sometimes the word sport can be quite scary. But I hopefully will want to encourage you this evening to think that the project that we're going to be involved in, that you're involved in, is a project that can be for all people. But first of all, let's have a think about what we mean by sport and well-being. So, as I said, we're trying to use the word sport to include a lot of things in its widest form here, to include well-being and outdoor pursuits. And we've used the Council of Europe's definition of sport, which is just here for us. So sport means all forms of physical activity, which through casual or organised participation aim at expressing or improving physical fitness and mental well-being, forming social relationships or obtaining results in competition at all levels. So that's the word that we're and the definition that we're using for the project. So what's the vision for this project, for the national project? Well, this is our vision, and over the last 3 months I've been grappling after having conversations with different people, grappling and just trying to really refine what the vision is. And here it is. Our vision is for the Church of England at national, diocesan and parish level to embed and use sport and wellbeing ministry as a significant evangelistic tool through the development of diocesan strategies in order to engage the church, reach communities, and transform the nation. And the ethos there is based in Scripture, John 10:10. I came so that they can have real and eternal life, more and better life than they ever dreamed of. So let's just think again, why are we actually doing this project? Well, sport, fitness, well-being, we believe is vital for the Church of England's evangelism strategy, to be that church for all people in every place. And as Bishop Simon also talked about, it's a whole person-centred ministry and mission. And there's an opportunity to connect with 50%, nearly 50% of the population, the vast majority of whom are not in church regularly. In 2017, Sport England reported that 16 million adults in the UK are playing sport weekly, in comparison to only 1 million attending Anglican churches on a weekly basis. There's some new data coming out soon from Sport England, so we'll see what the stats say there. But also the Active Lives Adult Survey show that 27.7 million people, 61.8% of the population in England are active. That's a huge amount of people that are active each week. But also the people playing sport are often the groups of people that we as a church find it difficult to reach and engage with. And you can see the stats there. So that's one reason, or a few reasons, why this project is really important. But also, kind of on the back of what Bishop Simon said, Bishop Adrian Newman, who was the former Bishop of Stepney, in a foreword to a fantastic article, which I can send on later on if you'd like to read it, says this, and actually it was written in 2018, but it could so easily be written now. It says, you'd be hard-pressed to read a newspaper or watch the news without a piece about the crisis in the nation's health and well-being. And as we still know at the moment, we're so concerned about our health and our well-being. The problem isn't going away, is it? And the problem is only exacerbating through COVID. I'll leave you to just a couple of minutes just to read the rest of that slide. As I say, the slide will be available afterwards, so we'll move on. But it's really saying that actually we really believe that this person-centered ministry mission is important for us involved in. It's a good thing. So what are we actually doing? Well, we've got two wildly important goals of the project, and they're basically. So we've got diocesan goals and we've got national goals, and both from different levels, I guess. Basically, the whole project is an experiment. So it's a radical as you like. Obviously, I'm not the bishop, so do check with the bishop first. But it's radical as you like. Experiment. And what we want to see, what things work for us to reach people, what things work to reach particular people, what things work to particular communities, what things work perhaps in more deprived areas or with a different type of people group. And we just use experiments and have a go. But then what we hope will happen is that at the end of the project, we'll be able to write a strategy that's not based on just lots of people thinking, that will be based on what's been tried in each of those pilots, each of the 7 pilot dioceses. And then what we'll be able to do is, through all that you offer us at the national level, we'll be able to then offer all that wonderful learning to the rest of the church, and just really good strategy for supporting well-being, and then hopefully that will grow across the rest of the Church of England. And how we're going to do it is we're going to, well, we've started already having monthly prayers, half-time prayers. Yes, they are half an hour, so it is a bit longer than the normal half-time, but you're very, very welcome to come along to those monthly prayer meetings. And I'm sure that the sports ministry, sports strategic team will be able to give you the link for that. But we've got a national learning community, which some of your colleagues are going to be part of, and that's a 3-monthly community that will gather together with all the 7 pilot dioceses for us all to learn from one another, to be able to share what's happening now, what are our dreams for the future, what have we learnt since last time, and hopefully we'll be able to shape those strategies then accordingly. And then there's going to be a monthly consultation call that colleagues will be able to get support from me, and then I'll be able to bring in the right people, hopefully at the right time, for some strategic conversations. And then on a 6-monthly basis, we hope to be able to widen that conversation, to be able to invite people like ambassadors like Kik, who you'll be hearing from later on, from Joe and Martin, and from other parasports organisations, so that we can join in that conversation and that learning together. I won't go into too much detail on this, but we've got some key performance indicators just to keep us on track, to think about specific areas that we want to focus on in the project. So the main wildly important goal is to be able to implement some strategies within those dioceses and then at a national level. Secondly is the partnerships, partnershipping with public bodies like Sport England and others, but also partnering really well with people like Joe and Martin, Sports Chaplaincy UK and Christians in Sport and others, but really making the most of those partnerships for this learning. But also developing leaders, because in order to grow this ministry and this mission, we need a pipeline of leadership. But what will that look like in your diocese? Who will be the people leading these missional initiatives in your diocese? What can we learn, and who will be the next leader? What will that pipeline of leadership look like? But also, how might we scale things out? Not so it doesn't just work in one place, but if it's working well in Rochester Diocese, maybe then Norwich might say, oh, actually, we'll try it there. And let's see if some of the models and the tools and the models of ministry can be scaled in other places. One of the things that I'm really noticing at the minute as I'm joining in conversations is lots of people saying the same sort of thing. They're saying that there's a real need for us to partner. Obviously, some of that has become out of necessity because of financial difficulties, but some of it is because people are saying, actually, it's really good to work as a team. And I'd love it if as we grow this ministry and this mission within each of the dioceses, that we could see some really creative partnerships happening. Maybe partners that we've never really considered before. And some of the things that are really exciting is that some of the leisure clubs and leisure facilities are talking about a co-location integrated approach. And I sat there thinking the other day, how amazing would it be if there was a GP surgery, there was a leisure centre, and then there was a worshipping community all gathered together, but growing that sport and wellbeing ministry together with those partners. I know it might not be easy when we partner with people, but lots of people are saying the same thing. The other thing that I'm really noticing at the moment is some of the challenges that are arising because of the pandemic. The school holiday effect. Normally when children are during the summer holidays, their physical activity lessens, but COVID has had a really big effect on children's physical activity and access to that. What are we going to do about that as a church? There's a real impact as well on decreased physical activity on the health and the economy of our nation as well. And as we know, there are real inequalities throughout the nation with this. Some of our most deprived areas and people groups are really struggling right now. And Nigel Huggleston, who is the Minister for Sport, said this. He said, "We need to be match fit to fight against COVID." Now, I'm not quite sure about that terminology, but one of the things that I think is really important for us as a church is to think how we might join in with that. How might we enable our churches to be match fit? What does a match fit church look like? And maybe that, or what does a match fit Christian look like? And maybe it's time for us to put on our trainers and join in and go out in a different way and to reimagine what we're doing. Now, you might think, oh gosh, this is another initiative and I'm already at my max. And I completely understand that. As a vicar myself, for a few years before this, I know the demands. But some of the things that I just wanted us to think about that are already in our hands. Well, we've got church buildings and land. We've got church buildings that can be used for fitness classes, to make it really accessible for people to be able to come along, to not have to travel miles to their nearest club. We've got schools who we partner with, schools with recreation grounds and outdoor facilities. There are often football cages, gyms, sports clubs, GPs, park runs, leisure centres, all within a parish and certainly within a diocese. There are often people in our congregations who love sport, who are involved in some sort of sport club each week. So perhaps these are the people that we can start with, who could be those volunteers. There are lots of partners, as I've already talked about, public bodies who really do want to partner at this time, but also the para-sports organisations who I've already mentioned. But most of all, there's a real urgency to join in with that national recovery through at this awful time of COVID, and physical fitness will really help us with that. And also what's already in our hands is that you've agreed to be one of the pilots. And so it's really encouraging that you're already there, ready to go. And we want to encourage you just to have a go and experiment. And just to end, and it really just speaking to the same way as what Bishop Simon was saying, it's time to rediscover the theology of our physicality in Christ, to work in partnership with public bodies, and to be a part of the solution to build a healthy, cohesive, and compassionate communities through sport and physical activity. I'm going to end there, and I think I'm going to pass over now to Bishop Simon. But thank you very much.
Natalie, thank you so much for that. Really appreciated it. And I guess we'll be able to obtain your slides as well so that we could reflect on them too, because after this event, we'll be circulating the recording to people, so they should be able to get hold of them that way as well. So thank you. It was excellent. Appreciated you starting with Jamie Vardy. I just want to say, of course, he was Fleetwood Town before he was Leicester City. That's a mere detail, of course. And also to those who are with us today, if you have any particular questions that you want to ask of Natalie or indeed any of our speakers as we go along, could you put them in the chat function? Because there should be space at the end for us to reflect on that. We will be finished by 8:30 at the latest, come what may, even earlier, depending on how many questions you've got. But I'll leave that one with you, and it would be really helpful, I think, to have something of a conversation around this. So thank you, Natalie. I'm now going to introduce a couple of people from within our own diocese. That's Will North and Mark Montgomery. I can see Will. I'm guessing Mark's somewhere. Yeah, there he is. Good. Okay, thank you. Because these two guys, who I did point out were 100% fitter than I am, which is absolutely true. They could literally power a nuclear power station with their kind of cycling and running capacity. Also have specific roles within the diocese. So I just wanted first, very quickly, both Will and Mark in the old kind of time-honoured, and it shows my age, Cilla Black blind date. Tell us your name and where you come from. And that's all I want you to say at this point, and then I'll carry on.
Okay, I'll go first. I'm Will, and I am in Barming, which is on the edge of Maidstone.
Thank you.
And I'm Mark. I'm in Kings Hill, which is a new build town in the middle of Malling Deanery. I think it's probably the easiest place.
Thank you both very much. Now, I want to ask you a question. If you could tell us, maybe starting with Will and Mark to speak, tell us about your role around sport and well-being in the diocese and what your hopes are for us all.
Okay, so my official title is Rochester Diocese Sports Ambassador. When I was given the role, it was about keeping sport and sports ministry on the agenda, on the radar of the Church of England, and in effect holding the diocese to account to make sure that we weren't missing sports, and now as it's been grown into well-being, to make sure that was staying there and that we were engaging with it. I think as we've moved into the pilot project, the roles now kind of changed a little bit, where it kind of means that Mark and I become a bit of a focal point and kind of go-to people in the diocese if people are interested in sports and well-being and how to get projects up and running.
Thank you very much, Will. Mark, would you like to add anything to that?
No, I was always Will's in support of Will and Will's backup, and so Will was very firmly in the lead, and he invited me along to a couple of conferences. I said yes, and it's ended me up here.
Thank you both very much. So basically, I mean, you've had some kind offers already tonight, which is from Natalie at a national level, and then from Will and Mark at a local or regional level. If you're looking for advice, support and help in really kick-starting these projects in your churches, or indeed starting to dream about what they might look like, then these are the people that you can approach, and they're very keen that you do approach them as well, and I'm sure that they can help us. So that's just a quick overview really from Will and from Mark, and an indication of the seriousness of which we're taking this as a diocese. What I'm going to do now is just give us 5 minutes break. Caroline, who's here just next to me on the screen, but probably not on yours, has run so many webinars, she could, do it in her sleep. And she is absolutely sure that everybody needs 5 minutes break at some point, and I think she's right. So we're going to take that now. You don't need to go away, of course, if you want to listen to more talk sport from us. But we're going to reconvene again at just about 25 to 8, when we're going to hear from Joe Lowther and Martin Bateman, two of our external speakers who we're very much looking forward to hearing from. So time's your own for the moment. Thank you very much. And we'll see you at 25 to 8. Right, I make it 25 to, and I suddenly realised I didn't even move from my seat, which shows how much of a couch potato I am. I'm going to introduce our next speaker now, who is Joe Lowther. Joe is married to Laura and has 3 sons. He was previously a principal of an outstanding school and is now CEO of KIC. KIC's mission is to transform young people's lives with God's love through sport and support. They do this through values-driven physical education, street dance mentoring, excuse me, I lost my way, street dance mentoring, chaplaincy in schools, and church-based KIC academies. KIC has grown rapidly to engage over 12,000 young people a week across 77 schools and 24 church-based KIC academies. They are also committed to seeing young people experience a hope for the future and joy in the present. So I'm extremely grateful to Joe, who's come to speak to us tonight, and I'm going to hand over to him now. Thank you, Joe. I think you might need to unmute yourself first, Joe.
Apologies. Thank you so much, Bishop Simon, and really excited to be here and to share with you a bit about our work. So I'll bring us into our slides. I'm going to look tonight at 4 key areas. What's our problem? What's our solution? What's our progress? And what's our prayer? So first off, our problem. I don't know about you, but these things really motivate me, and I am really concerned that children are experiencing a sense of hopelessness. This has been exacerbated, obviously, through the COVID-19 crisis. But 1 in 3 15-year-olds identify with a mental health condition. Only 4.5% of children attend church in the UK. 2 million children, that's 20%, grow up in lone parent families without a father figure often in their lives. And 3 out of 5 16 to 24-year-olds feel disillusioned. So there's a whole range of reasons that motivate us to do the work we do, but these are some of the problems that we encounter, and prayerfully and by God's grace, we want to have a solution to respond to that. So our vision is to reach a generation of young people within a generation of time, within the next 15 years, to give young people a hope for the future and joy in the present. And our mission is to transform young people's lives with God's love through sport and support. And so essentially, we want to go into schools. If children have, in some cases, stopped coming to us, we want to go out to them. And so we go into schools and we deliver 4 things: physical education, street dance, mentoring, and chaplaincy. And then we want to take young people on a journey out of school and into church via a stepping stone of a Kick Academy, where we do some coaching with an inspirational thought from the Bible and then matches. And that's where we train and upskill volunteers. We want to reimagine what coaching looks like in a school context. As was shared earlier, I used to be a head teacher of a school, outstanding school in Tower Hamlets, and I felt called out of that environment and into mission. And so I love meeting head teachers and talking about our work, because for a range of different reasons, we believe in aspirational coaching of young people. We believe in compassionate mentoring of them. We believe in excellent education and execution. We believe in intentional relationships and integral interactions. You know, a real wide range of sports that we deliver in schools, your kind of classic ones, but we also deliver Paralympic provision and boxing and swimming and korfball and handball and tri-golf, a whole range that a school can enjoy. A whole wide range of dance disciplines as well, everything from street dance all the way to Afro beats and Bollywood. You know, we provide often an educational offer to these schools that really wows them. And so we deliver these services in schools, all laced with Christian values. And then we upskill local people in their local environment to engage their local young people through Kick Academies, so that we can have this we can give away resources for volunteers from local churches to do some coaching, sports ministry and matches, or if it's a dance academy, coaching, ministry and routines. Because we believe in these 4Ds, this 4D approach to sharing the good news, demonstrating God's love in our schools. We are guests of those schools, and we want to, the way we deliver our services, we want to be as loving as possible. Then in the Kick Academies with the churches, we want to start to declare the gospel and help young people make an informed decision about who they believe Jesus to be, and then pass the baton on to local churches to see them continue that discipleship journey over a lifetime. So we've looked at our problem, our solution, and what's been our progress. It's been an amazing story, really. I joined 5 years ago, and in that time, we've grown from 17 schools to 70. Our staff team has grown from 7 to 56. I wrote this PowerPoint last week. We're now at 60 staff. We've employed 4 more this past week. It's been amazing, even in these difficult times. We're now mentoring over 600 young people a week. That's up from 303 12 months ago. And in London, our work has grown from 28 boroughs, from 6, to 28 boroughs in these last 5 years. These are some of the things that the young people talk about us and refer to us. That, you know, Jaden said, I look forward to school every day when the kit coaches are in. Tamika talks about the fact that she feels accepted when she's working with the coaches that she does. And in our churches, kit coaches make church fun. You know, this idea of doing church on the pitch is exciting for a number of the young people. So let's make this a little interactive. Pick a picture and I'll tell you a story. Who wants to go first? Any picture, somebody shout out.
Cricket.
What was that one? Cricket?
Cricket.
Fantastic. Oh, can't wait to tell you this story. So this is a story about Lucas. Lucas came to us and was actually referred to us in one of our secondary schools. His mum and dad had got divorced and he was really angry about this. And he started to experiment with drugs. And he then started to get involved in dealing drugs to afford his habit. And Lucas referred to us in the mentoring program at his school, and we do the mentoring. We started to kind of discussing this behavior with Lucas and challenging it. And towards the end of the day, we said, Lucas, would love you to come to the after school club we run in cricket. Now, I don't know if you know this. What is the most dangerous time in a young person's week? What time frame is the most dangerous time in the week for them? Any guesses?
I would guess just after school was finished.
That's right. 3 till 5 is the most dangerous time for a young person. It's where often mum and dad aren't quite home yet, and they've got nothing to do after school. It's where they get up to lots of risky behaviours. And so the after school club we ran in cricket for Lucas enabled him to not have time to deal drugs. And Lucas excelled as a cricketer and now opens the bowling and is captain of the cricket team at his school. But he came to our mentor and he said, I don't play cricket because I like cricket. I play cricket because of you. I've gone to that after school club because of you. And just having that strong role model for him has enabled Lucas to be involved in different habits in his life and listen to a credible person who was a sports coach really speaking to his life. So that's been helpful. And we've got time for just one more story. Pick a picture, I'll tell you a story. Anybody shout out?
The box.
The box. Oh, I love this one. Yeah, so one of our coaches in a primary school this time, and he decided that he wanted to pray for each of the staff team in the school. And he was building towards Christmas. He thought, wouldn't it be lovely to really pray and ask God for a word of encouragement for each of the staff members? So he thought, well, you know, there are, I don't know, 12 teachers, I'll do this. And then as he started writing them, he got really carried away and thought, well, what about the TAs? I can't leave them out, and the reception staff and the senior leadership team. He ended up going to bed at 4 in the morning the night before his coach, the final day of the year, having prayed through the night for these members of staff. And I started getting emails just before Christmas. I was thinking, oh dear, has he done something wrong? And the head teacher was saying what a profound impact this coach had had in the words of encouragement he'd prayed into and the impact it had made on a number of the staff. A deputy head also called me in tears, saying that she'd suffered a bereavement and that the word of encouragement that Josh had written for her meant the world to her. And so again, there's just a whole range of different ways in which we make an impact in these schools and these communities. I'd love to tell you the other stories, but for time, we haven't got time. I'll let this deputy head talk a little bit about his experience with KIC, about how we've become an integral part of the school. This is a secular school. We've got very good examples as well of Church of England schools we work in, but it's encouraging to see that they see us as an integral part of the school and keeping kids active. So, as I say, we've looked tonight at our problem, solution and progress. Finally, it's just our prayer. Our prayer is for more opportunity to engage more young people through schools and church-based KIC academies. Our thanks is that we've had opportunities to engage in this year. And another prayer is for workers. The harvest is plentiful, the workers are few, so pray for workers. Our Our work has grown nationally. We were previously regional organisation in London, but we are looking to go to the 15 regions of the UK across the next 15 years. And so we're really excited about the fact that Rochester straddles both within the M25 and outside. And so again, where there is a church and a school in a village, town or city, there's opportunity for our work to be impactful. And so again, we're excited by that. And it's our aims really to grow, have the funding to do so, develop the quality of our work, partner with the church at the heart, and develop our Christian ethos. And so in the next 15 years, it's our heartbeat to grow to reach 40,000 children a week in 5 years, grow again at a rate of 4 to 150,000 a week in 10 years, and then grow at a rate of 6 to reach 1 million young people a week in 15. Now, you in your community, let's break this down. If you had one Kick Academy at your church, if we trained your volunteers to run this, and we were able to get into 2 or 3 schools, we could see as many as 1,000 young people engaged in the school, and a proportion of that engaged in the community. We tend to see about 10% transition from school to church for the academy. So wouldn't it be amazing to have 100 children and young people coming to your church, and to have more children than adults? Again, that's something that we're excited by. So finally, please pray for us. There's a whole range of different ways you can get involved, but prayer is so key. Please volunteer time if you'd like to. Please introduce us or recommend us to a local school. We would be so excited to work in your area. Please invite us to, promote an academy to young people. Invite children to it. Feel free to give and try and get involved in setting up an academy. We'd be so excited by that. So there's my email. I put it in the chat as well. Please email me. I would be really excited to explore this further and arrange an appointment, either come out and see you, or we can do it via Zoom, and just look at how we can synthesize what we're doing to your local community. You might think, oh, we've got a person really passionate about sport. I'd love to run an academy. Or you might think, we haven't got the volunteers right now, but I do an assembly at our local primary school, or I know a governor at a local secondary school. Introduce me. I'd love to meet the head teacher and explore that. So there's a flavour of Kick and our mission to transform young people's lives with God's love through sport and support. And I'd love to look at doing some more of this with you. So there we go. That's Kick.
Joe, thank you so much indeed for that very clear presentation. And I mean, I've got 1 or 2 questions, but we're going to leave them to the end. And I think that if other people have questions, just put them into the chat box now, actually, and Joe and others will be able to answer that. So I'm going to introduce our final speaker for tonight, and that is Martin Bateman, who's just driven twice past Tyson Fury's house. I just dropped that one in for no apparent reason. Martin's connected to Ambassadors Football, which began in 1990 with a small group of Americans, I think that's right, Americans, setting up a local football team in Bolton in Lancashire. Since then, it's grown to an organisation that works in 28 countries around the world. The aim of the British office is to support local churches in their disciple-making efforts through football, from walking football to kids clubs, football camps to church teams. We want to inspire and train churches and individuals to reach their potential in Christ through football. Martin is married to Joe and enjoys living in Lancaster, which of course is in lockdown Lancashire at the moment, unfortunately, along with their 3 children and a crazy border terrier called Monty. Martin, it's great to have you. Over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. My crazy border terrier is very lazy as well, so thankfully I shouldn't be disturbed. But if I suddenly run away, it's because one of the kids can't control it in another room. But it's a pleasure to be with you. And the Joe's presentation was just an encouragement to me. Joe and I have known each other for 5 years, more or less, as we've both been involved in sports ministry nationally at a national level within our organisations. And it's just tremendous to see how KIC has grown. There've been various times where Ambassadors has been involved in helping start or develop other ministries. And KIC was one of those probably about 15 to 20 years ago, where one of our former staff members went down to London before we had a team there and helped to start the work there. It's just tremendous to see the efforts that they that are reaping rewards in the gospel message being proclaimed, and it's just really good. I just want to show you a video which could always be a challenge, but we'll see how it goes. Made just 1 or 2 years ago, but it covers a little bit of Ambassadors history and something more, kind of like the advertising break, maybe before I do my little spiel. So let's see if this works. But hopefully, if you don't hear sound, it's because it was going to be it would have been it's just music most of the time anyway. So don't worry, you've got to make it up as you go along. But let's see how this goes.
It's not on yet, Garrett, could you tell us about the future growth of Ambassadors in Sport here in England?
But we'll have 3 soccer schools this year, and we'll have over 150 children that we will have worked with by the end of the year.
So that's a brief overview of the last 30 years now. We made that video in 2016, and we had a hope that we could work with 500 churches across Britain by 2020. Lockdown has paid a little bit to the last few months of that effort, but we're working with about 420 churches in a variety of ways throughout this country. And I will just share one or two slides with you that can guide the conversation as we go now. And Ambassadors really wants to serve churches. We want to invest in churches and invest in people. And we do that to help the churches transform their communities, help them in their disciple-making mission, to inspire and train people through football ministry. We try to keep it as simple as we can. It was Ambassadors in Sport when the Americans first arrived, and they were a bit worried because if they called themselves Ambassadors Football, the Americans wouldn't really get it because they'd think it was American football. If they called themselves Ambassadors Soccer, then all the Brits would not even listen to them. So they thought, okay, let's go for the middle ground, Ambassadors in Sport. But it was always football. So for 23 years or so, everyone used to say, well, Ambassadors in Sport, which sport? So we finally sorted out the Americans, and we're Ambassadors Football. And one of the reasons why Ambassadors and why football? Well, football can build friendships. It's a universal language. It's great for non-English speakers. It is the biggest sport in the world. A little bit, I appreciate Simon, because whether you like football or not, I want to just let you know that lots of people still do. And that is a great opportunity to build bridges into communities, making conversation and also having opportunity for activity. So we focus on football, but that's not the only type of ministry that we'll be limited to, because we want to link up with other churches' ministries through the football activities. Keeps people fit. You can coach biblical values through all of the football. I was doing that this afternoon with some kids at an after-school club that we run here in Lancaster, with commitment being the theme for the week. So you can be committed in football, committed in life, and what does the Bible say about commitment? You can witness through the play, obviously. Harry Maguire and the other England players weren't particularly good witnesses yesterday. If you know anything about football, a couple of red cards were shown. But you can also use those experiences to be able to teach great values through the football that you play and that you coach. It can challenge the stereotypes that we normally have of the church activities that we normally do. We can help to do that. And it can contribute towards affecting change in social issues. One of the ways in which we love to work alongside churches is through our community football outreach training. And this is specifically aimed at the local church to be able to get it to understand more about football ministry and then reach out to its local community. We do it in, if we go on a journey with them, we want to go on a journey with each church that we work with. So if you're a local church, we start off a bit corny, I know, but bear with me. We start off with a team talk. So you've got to be able to get people prepped up and ready. So we identify the needs and vision of your church, and that would be normally through an initial community football outreach training day, or a vision casting evening, and sometimes a one-on-one conversation. We look to plan and recruit and program and sort out the program. I've just realized that I can see people's faces and I can't read what this next slide says. But kickoff, so I've got to remember because I wrote this. Kickoff is our time when we get out onto the pitch and we actually organize the activity that the church might want to do. It could be walking football, it could be with kids, it could be with youth on a local estate. We come alongside you for 6 weeks, at least every week, one of us or one of our representatives, just putting into practice what we've learned about. So we start the program, we take the bag of balls, we take the Bible, we share our faith, and we help the church members, the volunteers that are there, to be able to get up to speed with what they can do, so we can hand over to them and let them run the program. Then through the next 12 months, we look to mentor and train, be ready to consult with that church to be able to look at the tactics that they're using. We talk about that. You kick off a lot of times in a football match, depending on if you're playing Aston Villa or not, or maybe Spurs, you might have to kick off a lot of times because you concede a lot of goals. But you can go back to that kickoff time, but you can work on your tactics to be able to see what's working, what's not, how can we change this ministry that you've got. So we offer that from Ambassadors virtually and also in person, to be able to come and visit to say, how's it going? And link up churches with others, especially if you're in the same diocese or deanery. There could be 1 or 2 churches wanting to focus on a certain area or type of ministry that we can then help you to train in. And then we have set pieces. We sometimes pause and we'll have tournaments that we arrange. The London Churches Football Tournament sees over 60 teams play on one day in London from about 40 churches, and that's a great catalyst for ministry. We've also got the National Christian Football Festival and other types of events that we can help the church to be able to do to be able to then build into that football ministry. Here's an example of Sam, who's on the right-hand side there at King's Church, Durham. Mark Oliver, who's standing in the middle, looking very pleased for himself. He's just brushed the cage where they would normally play football over in County Durham just before last Christmas, when they were going to have their Christmas carol service, which they had in the football cage with the kids that they've been playing with. And the way the CFO worked out, the Community Football Outreach Training worked out with them, was that early 2019, Mark got connected as our staff member to the guys in the church. The youth pastor, Sam, wanted to know how they could do football outreach. So they prayed around the estate where they were. As you can see at the top there, they worked out which partners they could work with, the school, the youth club. And then in June, over the course of a week, they did every evening football activities there in that park and on that cage. And ambassadors led that. Mark was involved in leading it and handed it over to Sam and some others from the youth group and older youth and teens to be able to deliver football for the rest of that summer. And then we went back to them with the tactics. There was a WhatsApp group rejoicing in the good times and going through the challenges, going back towards the end of the year as they went indoors to be able to say, here are some new activities you can do because you're going to be indoor over the summer, over the winter, and you need to use a softer ball, and there are some activities that you might want to do there. And then some of the set pieces. Talk Football is a resource that we produce every Friday. It goes out by email. It's question-based, all around an incident that's happened in world football that week. I'll explain a little bit in another slide in a moment, but it's a great way to introduce Christ and gospel principles into a football environment. And we do it in almost all of our projects that we do worldwide, actually, as well as in Britain. And then through the set pieces that they had, they introduced a church alpha. They invited kids and adults from the youth and the football activities to come to the alpha course. And they had weekly men's football then that was developed with Dave, the dad, who was one of the dads of one of the young men that came along to that youth outreach. So you look at your football in your local picture. It could be as exotic as this football pitch, or maybe a little bit more run of the mill. But what does it look like for you in your area? Are there lots of amateur clubs? Could you introduce something for kids that don't feel they can be part of the more serious football setup? It's what we do in Lancaster every Saturday morning. We have 40 kids, all at primary school age, with volunteer coaches from the local church, and 30 of them don't come to church at all. 20 of them are from Muslim families in the local area, but they don't want to be part of a club because it costs money and time of commitment by the families to be able to go. And so they can come every week. They know that it's a Christian organization. The local imam sends his son as well. And we have a chance to be able to introduce Jesus into that environment. So you work on that together. Just a few examples. These are the young men of the of St. Andrew's Leyland walking football team. And I can't tell you how many replacement joints there are in that photo, but I tell you, it's more than a handful. But these blokes, inspired by Keith McIntosh, who's one of the sports ambassadors for our wonderful Blackburn Diocese, and worked at Manchester United for 35 years. Don't hold that against him. Honestly, he still loves Jesus. And he wanted to get something up and running. So they started it a couple of years ago. Every Thursday, it complements their indoor bowls and table tennis club that they have on the Monday. They've had the Bishop of Blackburn coming along to give a little talk. And most recently, they had a 93-year-old gentleman come along who couldn't really move anywhere very fast. But they gave him a square that he used to stand in here on the badminton court that was built in 1920 by a vicar with foresight who wanted to see sport and ministry combined through the church's ministry there in St. Andrews. And they had him stand in his square, and they said to everybody else, you got to help him out a little bit because he's not going to run very far. Give him a few easy passes and he'll be able to pass it on. It's linked in with a dementia group and Sporting Memories that also works very well. A former professional player who used to play for Nottingham Forest. He gets his kit on at about 7 a.m. every morning. He's got early onset dementia. His wife appreciates it so much because he's got a chance to be able to go and do the thing that he loves on the football field. You would not know that there was anything wrong between the ears with Steve Elliott, but he's got early onset dementia, and it's a tremendous outlet for him. So that's what they did. The Good Shepherd Mission in Whitechapel wanted to reach out to the homeless. They've got Booth House and they've got a Salvation Army hostel very close by, And over the last 10 years, there's been a project with Good Shepherd Mission, which is a church in Mile End and in Whitechapel in central London, and ambassadors playing football and then eating a good meal, which kind of, they all, if you can see the size of that meal, it puts pay to any exercise they do, but then they have a chance to be able to share faith after that event. And that's what they wanted to do. So there are models that we've got that we can introduce to your situation. Talk Football is our little talk that we do every week. And Cam Rule was a Muslim from the homeless project that we had. And he came one week and he never was very interested in what we were talking about when it came to faith matters, but he loved playing football. He was a bit unruly. But one week he came back and he said, oh, I remember you told me that story last week about Raheem Sterling and Joe Gomez at the England squad. They had a fight on the training pitch and they weren't doing very well. And you talked about the idea that we could judge people really easily. And my brother and I, we've never got on. We just really don't like each other. But I realized I was judging him too much and not really realizing that I could be at fault sometimes in the arguments we have. Thanks very much for introducing that concept to me through your Bible talk. So there are ways in which we can help you introduce that type of ministry into your situation. We love to come alongside people. There's my Twitter handle, AmbassadorsMB. If you follow Natalie, she's always retweeting my tweets. No. Anyway, so we'll be able to connect with each other. You can send an email, and I think I will put a link in the chat box that is a response form that we've got on our website that's very simple. Just if you're looking to get more information about what we do and how we can help you, that'd be great. One thing that we've just got up and running now is that a church in Darwin in the Blackburn Diocese is really interested in doing some football outreach. They've got a link to a local football club. And so we're going to have a chat with them for an hour on November the 9th, actually, at 7:30. We'll be putting it on Zoom. And so you'd be very welcome to chip in there and listen to some of the stuff that we're going through then. So November the 9th on Zoom, we'll be doing that. And I can put those details, send it through Will and Mark to you all if you're interested, just to start the journey with community football outreach. Thanks very much.
Martin, thank you. That's great. Really appreciated that. Two things. Sorry, this is a very personal question from me. I was a curate in Darwin. So which church in Darwin?
St. James. St. James is lower Darwin.
Yeah, I know. I was St. Peter's. And
the head teacher, Dan Theobald's, is an old friend of one of our staff members. He brought us into a school to do some RE and PE lessons last year. And now he's an elder in the local church, and they're a united benefice now, or whatever it's called. I think the team ministry. So actually, a former ordinand from our church here in St. Thomas's, Lancaster, is now working at St. Peter's, Alice Cole. So they're doing it in combination to work with the local football club there. Yeah,
thank you. That's great. Blackburn Diocese kicked me out. Not that I'm resentful at all or held against them, but it's good to hear.
Come back, all is forgiven, really. You know,
So, and the final question facetiously was, where on earth is that football pitch? Where if you're actually attacking from right to left and you were actually on the right wing, you'd never actually see the ball because it'd always be down at the roadside. Where's that pitch?
Oh no, I thought I've always hoped no one had ever asked me that question. I think it's somewhere in India that was nowhere in Britain as far as I know. But I'd love to. Yeah, I wouldn't like to be a right winger going from left to right. You'd hardly ever see the ball if it goes down that hill.
Exactly. We got one or two. I mean, certainly there's a question that Peter asked, and I know that I think Will, to an extent, you sought to answer that yourself. But Peter's point was about how so many actually significant clubs have started out as church clubs in this country, and really how we avoid the pushback against that. Do you want to follow up at all on that, Peter, or are you happy with the answer that Will has given you? I think you're muted at the moment, actually. Peter. I think what we might do, we'll come back to you, don't worry. The worst thing is, oh, here he comes, he's here. Right, thank you. I think you're on now, Peter.
Okay. Yeah, my academic perspective on this is I work in a field of excluded congregations, so I look a lot and sport has generally been a way of reaching out. I mean, we have a great history in the church of gyms, of sport clubs, and as the bishop quite rightly points out, that many of our top flight football teams originate as church teams. The pushback against that came from within inside the church. So my question, which Will goes a long way to answering, but really is how are we going to change that? And it takes a lot of commitment to run outreach. We know that churches increasingly in this COVID environment are especially short of money. So there's not money to put in it. So how do we push back against that?
Well,
Mark.
I mean, I can give that a
Yeah,
go
good.
if that's helpful.
Yeah, please do, Joe. And then I think Mark maybe said something. Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks for your question, Peter. One of the things that I was really captivated by was our first Kick Academy 17 years ago. There was a church leader, a vicar of Holy Trinity Richmond Church, and he had 3 sons, and he could see a mile off that he was going to face a challenge where they want to be playing sport on a Sunday. Today, you are 7 times more likely to be playing sport on a Sunday than you are to be going to church as a child or young person. And so he could see this happening with his own children, let alone losing families to sport. It can't, that is tragic. And so he came in one Sunday morning. He said, guys, I want us to all come in half an hour early on a Sunday for the sake of our young people. So instead of 10:30, they came in at 10. They did Sunday morning, Sunday school, and at 11:30, all the kids went out to a Kick Academy, and they did coaching, inspirational the Bible matches until 1 o'clock. And after their parents had tea and coffee and all that boring stuff for kids, they went out, collected them, and they went home as a family at 1 o'clock for Sunday lunch together. And so it was this great way. I think the Bishop of Kingston referred to it as reinventing Sunday school, offering sport and church, not in competition. And so that's where we found the Kick Academy model to work well. Clearly, these COVID-19 times, we anticipate that by the spring things will open up more again. But we had it. I mean, just to encourage you, we did have one new Kick Academy launched 2 weeks ago in Croydon. And again, that was really exciting, a new one start. These kids, they're being caged up, and with these new tier 1, 2, tier 2, 3, 3 restrictions, there will be again, and they're just desperate to get out and be playing sport. And so it could be a real opportunity for the church to champion that and lead on that. As you said, I think it's 30% of professional football teams founded by the church. And again, wouldn't it be great to be on the forefront of leading that dynamic once more?
Thanks very much, Joe. Mark, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I'm sort of picking up a little bit about what Will's response was, really. For me, I am a sports person. I do play sport. I love sport. I'm at the family decision at the moment where a lot of church families are. Do we let our daughter play football on a Sunday morning, or do we make her stay in church? But as I alluded to at Synod a while ago, sports ministry isn't just about playing and doing. It's there's a whole realm of ministry that can be achieved and linked into if you are engaging with the local sports community. So as a church, we sponsor our local football club. What that means is that we gain a place at the table at the local as part of their business partnership, which that opens up opportunities to put people in touch with solicitors who are going through difficult times, to relocate food during lockdown to those who are in need. I'm chaplain at the local cricket club, which has meant me standing outside trying to find someone who's become homeless somewhere to sleep. At the moment, I'm accompanying a gentleman who is going through marriage breakdown. I'm the one who sat at the side when they get injured and don't know how to do football or cricket again, and whether they'll be able to play again. And what does that look like when all of their life is put in to football or into cricket. I'm the one who walks alongside or cycles alongside people and listens to their journey. And it's not just about the sport, but things like healthy walks, walking alongside men. One of my favorite spiritual directors once told me, men don't talk about anything unless they're looking at an engine, watching sport or drinking beer, or maybe just walking along the road. And what that does is it gives us opportunities that are not just about playing or being in sport, but being alongside people who are playing and being in sport. Supporting your congregation members who is a football coach. Our treasurer is a football coach. He doesn't come much on a Sunday because he's training with the kids and he's developing those children. But when the matches are called off, he's the first through the door. And it's about enabling that to happen rather than that and or, but also looking at the opportunities that being engaged with the local sport community can bring and can enter mission into. And you've probably got people in your churches who are already in those places that can reach out and help. And by training them, then they can reach out instead of just the individuals, instead of just us as clergy or people at the front or what have you. It's a whole people ministry, not just one or two.
Thanks very much indeed, Mark. I noticed in the chat function that Caroline has said something about churches doing healthy walks. I just wonder if I could maybe just put you on the spot for a moment, Caroline, and ask you just to explain what that is and how it works and what's going on.
Yeah, thank you. Healthy walks are fantastic because what happens is the people will gather at the community hub or in the community cafe, and then they go out for a lovely, they usually have a cup of tea and a piece of cake to start with, I hasten to add, and then they'll go out for a lovely walk together, which is led by, some of them are led by clergy who've been trained by Healthy Walks 1U Kent or one of the other 1Us, which are very good. It's all free. And then they come back, they have a lovely walk together, and they come back and they have more tea and cake usually. And it's a lovely way of having conversations. And what we've noticed is a lot of bereaved people are coming on our healthy walks. A lot of people who are older, who perhaps have lost their confidence to go out for a walk on their own, frightened they might fall over, or frightened that there might be somebody lurking, waiting to chat to them that they don't want to talk to. So we get an awful lot of people coming on the walks, and it's something that doctors love because they can socially prescribe people. So what tends to happen is some people haven't even ever been in the church building, and they'll come in and they'll start asking those questions, or they'll notice the Easter garden or something like that really they haven't been in to see before. So it's about the conversations that happen as much as it is about the walk itself. And we're very lucky and blessed that Reverend Lorraine Turner, who's over at St Mary's, she is one of the trained people by 1U Kent, and she's sort of our ambassador for the healthy walks. It's a great thing to do.
Thank you. And also, just while you're on, football for the homeless.
Yeah, so obviously we do a huge amount with homeless in our diocese, and we really wanted to do football for the homeless. We thought we were going to do walking football for the homeless, but actually when we went up to East London and we engaged with the guys, we saw them playing football, then we went back and had the meal with them. And of course ambassadors they have proper professional sports reporters, and they write these talks that you can give. So at the end we sat there and listened to the talk, and it was really up to date, really talking about what was happening in the past week in sport. And the guys just loved it, and we went away and we said, you know what, let's not do it as walking football, let's just do it as football. So we're working with them. We've got two team members allocated to us. We should have opened in April, but because of lockdown and because of homeless people, the guidelines around homeless people, we're just waiting for the right moment to open, but it will be 2021.
Thank you very much.
Bill Lowther has been one of the authors of our weekly updates. He's one of the class reporters that would send this out. If anyone wants to receive it, no. But it could easily complement a lot of ministry that already happens. If you think about Messi Church, you can play football with kids. If you think about homeless work, you can play football. If you think about women's ministry, there's a church at Battersea Park, St Michael's Battersea Rise, that Wandsworth Common has a former rower as its vicar, Tiff Alice Ewins, and 40 ladies play every week. They're called the Marigolds when they enter our London Churches football tournament. I'm not sure why, but they bring a massive, great bundle of joy to the competition. But none of them have played football before. Almost all of them, 40 of them, meet together on a Tuesday at the park to play women's ministry.
Thank you. I should say, you don't need to put things into the chat function now. We've got just a few minutes left, and you're welcome, if you want, just to put up, if you know how to operate it, put up the hyperthermic blue hand if you want to say something or ask a question, or indeed just wave at me like that. But I have, just while you think that through, my question, I suppose, to any of the panelists really is, we've got churches represented from all over the place, church leaders, maybe those who don't have quite such a strong role within leadership of the church. They're probably asking themselves the question, if they're not doing it, how do you spot the openings? And having spotted the openings, how do you harness interest, get others to join you in seeing what can be done? It's just the basic first steps, really. Just any wisdom or advice over that. Natalie's got a hand up, so I'll turn to her first.
Well, I guess one of the things from my personal experience is just trusting that God goes ahead of us, praying obviously on a daily basis for those opportunities, and trying to just see where those springs are, where those opportunities are as you go through your day. But if you are, for example, going to the gym, if that is something that you do regularly, well, why not pray about that before you go and just see what opportunities come in terms of those relationships. In my running club, one of the amazing opportunities I had, I remember it was last winter, and I was running down this hill, and it was quite dark. The people that were in our running club, they knew that I was a vicar at the time, so we'd already had those sorts of banters of more tea vicar and that kind of thing when I was running along. But I ran down, and this chap said, "Let there be light," just as I came up alongside him. And I said, "Pardon?" And then he just started to talk about how he used to go to church and all of this stuff, which I won't go into the detail because it is, I guess it's holy ground when you have those conversations. But it was amazing because actually, to my shame, I was just enjoying my run. I wasn't really looking for any evangelistic opportunity, but actually the Holy Spirit had already gone ahead of me. He was working within that man's life, and actually just me turning up just as me, nothing special, very sweaty, very out of breath. There was the opening. And I think then I've had more and more openings like that. So to be honest, I think the opening is prayer and just going to those front lines. If we don't go out to those places like gyms, sports clubs that are already there, I guess those openings might not happen, rather than just trying to start something from scratch.
Yeah, I think, Mark was just ahead of Joe.
Go ahead, Mark.
I would also say, mission is that bit about finding out where God is and joining in. And one of the things that we've discovered as a church and working alongside the cricket club is we get as many volunteers from the cricket club as we do from in church when we do things. So, we host our community cafe. As many of you know, we don't have a building. We host our community cafe in the cricket club because it is a venue that is available, and there are lots of venues that are available that you can use for things. But when we say, oh, we want to think about doing this, we're running church in the car park at the moment. The PA system's being provided by a member of the cricket club. And there are a lot of resources in those places and volunteers in those places, and if you're there or you've got volunteers there, part of the starting can come with a joint group of people, not just necessarily church people. And that's a good segue between the church and the community, and bringing Christians together with non-Christians, which helps the Christians and also the non-Christians.
Thanks, Mark. Joe, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say that for us, our work can start either in the school or in the church with the Kick Academy. So it might be that you've got some volunteers that, you know, either perhaps a dad or a mum that really is passionate to engage kids, or it might be a 19 or 21-year-old person you want to just build more deeply into the church and give them a responsibility. You know, it's one thing saying to them, could you do the teas and coffees? It's another thing saying, can we train you, send you on some training in sports ministry? And they might feel, wow, I feel really invested in and appreciated by the church. So that's one way, the Kick Academy. But the other way is, wouldn't it be for us, you know, if we're able to get into the school and then just onboard kids out of the school and into the church through the Kick Academy, there's an opportunity there. But I completely agree with what Natalie was saying, and Mark. You know, it's all about prayer and being obedient to the Lord and walking by His Spirit, and then utilizing some of these methods. But often He does things differently anyway, doesn't He? But where we can, go out to where the children are in the school and invite them in to church. We're really excited by that.
Thanks very much, Joe. That's great. We have to, I think, Gillian, we've got time for one more question. I'm seeing Gillian's hand. So if you would like to ask your question to us or make your comment, just need to unmute yourself first.
Right, am I unmuted?
Yep.
Oh, good. I'm such a technophobe, sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to say, I've been teaching adult ballet at the Adult Centre and at the Community Centre for 30 odd years, and it's been a tremendous ministry. A lot of people have had so many conversations, and you have the coffee afterwards lasts longer than the class. But I'm also teaching Pilates in the chancel and teaching fitness for mature people. And I just wonder if this fantastic ministry is going to look at the whole demographic. I know we did mention the football, for the football, but I think there's a great ministry across the age groups.
Thank you. Natalie, do you want to say something in response to that at all?
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, firstly, Gillian, that's absolutely amazing, what you've been doing, and I'm sure there's lots of learning that you can offer as well to us from what you've been doing over the last 30 years. So thank you for that. But yeah, definitely, I think we want to be able to reach everybody. Of course, there'll be certain groups that particular churches feel called to in different places, but definitely. And I think I've just put in the chat earlier on, it's called the Undefeatable campaign, and I don't know whether you've come across it yet, but there's lots of charities working particularly with people with long-term health conditions about how we can actually reach and work with them. And there's a lovely website and a lovely video that you can watch on that link as well, and I think it's being aired on our TV. So again, talking about joining in with the government and the government strategies around trying to get everybody active, I think there's huge opportunities there for the church to join in. So thank you, Gillian.
Thank you.
Okay, we've reached 8:30, and I can't resist saying we're not going to have Fergie time tonight, so we won't be going on for 10 to 15 minutes until we've got what we wanted out of it. I just want to say thank you so much, you know, to our panelists, to Natalie, to Joe, to Martin, to Will, and to Mark, and to Caroline, who've also contributed tonight. Basically, this is about setting your brains buzzing, and I hope that it's done that tonight, and that you can share this with other people around you and just think it through with people in your church. We'll circulate a recording of it. Those of us who are tasked with overseeing if you like, the creation and the nurturing of sports ministry within this diocese, we're drawing up our own strategy, thinking our issues through. We're here for you, and we'll also be in touch with you too, and with other people as well we know who are interested in this. So this is very much the beginning for us, but bear in mind, you don't have to go it alone. You can actually always seek out help and assistance and support from any of the people who are represented here tonight, and that's really good news. So basically, I mean, I think as Natalie said, you know, in figuring it out, go away, pray, think through what God might be calling you to, and have the courage to step out in faith to do it. So I'm going to leave it there if that's okay for all of you now. And yeah, thank you everybody. Have a good evening, and you're welcome to sign yourself out. We won't just chop everybody off, but if you'd just like to see yourself out now, one by one, that would be great. Thank you very much.